some information on steps that you can take to fix some audio issues in Linux, especially if you're rebooting Windows and Linux like I am. They're both sitting in the same, boot partition. And so I ran into this problem and I found a couple of different issues that were going on, all right? And we'll go through those. Problem number one is every time I would reboot, I rebooted Linux into Windows and did something in Windows, which is once in a blue moon maybe, and then rebooted from Windows into Linux, I couldn't get the sound card working again in Linux. It seemed to happen every time I did that. All right, and the only way that I could get the sound card working again in Linux was if I completely powered the system down and then power it back on, go into Linux, and then I could get the sound card working again. Okay, so I did some research on that. And Windows has this feature called Fast Start, right? Fast Start. So it takes it less time to start up. If you have that enabled. If you have Windows Fast Start enabled and you have hibernation enabled on your Windows system and you're dual booting into Linux, Windows doesn't completely shut down when Fast Start is enabled or when it hibernates, right? Which is one of the reasons it's able to start up faster, is because it never actually completely shuts down. So it's got locks on some of the devices on the system, and the sound card on my system happened to be one of the devices that it kept a lock on, which explains why I had to power the system all the way down to get my sound card functional again in Linux. So solution to the problem number one is, if you're dual booting Windows and Linux, disable Fast Start and hibernation in your Windows system, and that will prevent that issue from happening again. Okay. I also read that having this enabled, this Fast Start and hibernation enabled on Windows when you're dual booting into Linux, can also create data corruption in your boot partition, and who wants that, right? So anyway, I would disable both those. I've disabled both those in my Windows 10 installation on this. Problem number two is that the Linux sound driver or kernel module seems unable to properly detect when the headphones are plugged in to the headphone port and when they're not plugged in to the headphone port. And then what I found was, and we'll look at a couple applications here in a minute, so after I finished using the headphones, and if you go in and you look at your sound card device, you'll find that the volume is turned all the way down on the headphones and it's muted. And however they engineered this sound card, it wasn't very good. But the way that they engineered the sound card makes it difficult, I guess, for the Linux kernel module or sound driver to properly detect when the headphone is patched in and when it's not. And so when it mutes the headphone channel with this and has the sound turned all the way down, I do not get any sound through my speakers anymore until I go back in and unmute it and increase the volume on the headphones, which is ridiculous that you have to do that. But a lot of these companies that develop the drivers for these devices, these cards, these sound card, don't provide that information, that engineering information, to the open source community so they can make proper drivers for it. So anyway, this is the very first system I've ever had where I had this issue with Linux, but I have it. And I'm sure there's a lot of you who have a system that has a cheap sound card on it, like apparently this one does. You're going to run into this issue too. This is going to require, like I said, a set of utilities installed on the system. All right. So the required programs I'm going to discuss are provided by the package of ALSA utils, the ALSA sound utilities. So if you install the ALSA utils package, you will have the applications that we're going to discuss here. And the way you're going to install those is with this command down here from the command line. You can do it from the command line, or you can do it from the application installation utility. But sudo apt-get install ALSA-utilities. That's the package that you want at least on Ubuntu or Mint, of course without the quotes. All right, so once you have that installed, that package installed, you'll have a terminal-based program that gives you a mixer. It's called Also Mixer. So you can create an application launcher for that, or what I just launch it from the command line. But Also Mixer is the name of the command, and I'll show that to you over here. So I've already got it set up here. So this brings up the Also Mixer. Now I have two different sound chips on my system. I have two different video cards, and the NVIDIA chipset on the board also seems to have a sound chip on it, as well as the Realtek, the Intel Realtek chipset that I have on. So my primary card, if I hit F6 will give you an option to select your sound card. So I push F6, and then I can go down to my Intel, HDA Intel PCH card. That's my primary sound card, and I'll switch to that. So now you can see, you've got a master, volume, channel, you got headphones, speaker, PCM, you got microphone. Everything else seems to be working fine. It's the headphone. For whatever reason, the way they've engineered this card, the headphone channel is really, really strange. I don't understand why, if the headphones were muted, you wouldn't get any sound through the speakers. It should be the opposite, right? If the headphones are enabled, you wouldn't get output through the speakers, but if the headphones were disabled, you would get sound through the speakers. Anyway, it doesn't work that way. All right, so anyway, this is the utility that gives you access to the mixer, so you can see all this stuff and correct it. Let's go back to the other screen. All right, so then there's another utility. It's called ALSA CTL, and this is the ALSA control utility. And this is a command line program that will save your current sound card settings to a configuration file. This is how I correct this when something goes wrong. So once you get your sound card set up, and you can use this utility, the ALSA mixer. That's what I use, even though my primary sound system is Pipewire and Pulse Audio. Okay, this utility has still worked for me. The ALSA utils have worked for me. So once you get it set up, everything working properly on your Linux system with your sound card, then issue this command, sudo, you need root privileges, so sudo ALSA CTL store. And the parameter store tells it to write that information to the configuration file. Okay? And the reason we need to do that is because when something happens, if you're using your headphones, you unpatch your headphones, instead of having to go back in to the mixer to fix this stuff again, what I do is I just create a little shell script that issues this command, which is sudo ALSA CTL restore. So what that does is it sets your sound card back to the settings that you previously saved. Okay, so and we'll show that. I'll show that to you right now. So let's go back over here to this terminal. So you see, I've got my master set for 70% volume. My headphones are full volume. My speakers are at full volume. PCM, my microphone is not quite at full volume, but my headphone, there's nothing muted. Okay, in my audio. And if we go to, let me see if I could bring up a sound that we can play, just so I can show you when it's working and when it isn't working. So let me bring up another tab here. Open another tab, and let's go to share. I think sounds should have plenty of stuff in it. Let's see. Change directory to mate. And change directory to default. Wow, we got to dive deep here, man. Alerts. Got to dive deep. Oh, here we go, finally. Okay, so if I issue play and glass or sonar, we'll say sonar, and it's OGG file. Okay, we'll play it real quick. Okay, so did you hear that? Let's try Let me turn the audio all the way up so that you can hear it better. But we'll do that again. Okay, so you can hear that. All right, so now watch when I move my sound all the way down. I'll just go ahead and mute my master volume control here, and then we'll play that again, and you won't hear anything. Now listen. Okay, so you didn't hear anything. All right, so if I go back to the previous tab, and I've already saved my configuration by issuing this command. So if I want to restore my previous settings that I wrote to the configuration, now watch, if you watch them, when I issue this command, watch the master volume. It'll unmute, it'll go back to 70%, which is what I had it set at. Okay, you ready? Check that out. Okay, so it has loaded my my sound card configuration with the settings that I had at the time that I saved it. So it unmuted the master. It put the volume back to the volume level it was at when I saved it. Okay, so now if I go back and run that audio file again, you can hear it again. Okay, so save and restore. Okay, those are the two options that you have with that. If you don't list a sound card, a specific sound card, then it saves the configuration of all sound cards. And when you run the restore parameter without listing a specific sound card, it restores all the sound cards. So be aware of that. If you want to restore different configurations for different sound cards, you might want to list it, specify the sound card that you want to save and restore only that sound card. All right, so let's go back. So what I did was here's the code that I used. It's real simple shell script, okay? I called it speakerfix.sh, and I keep a script folder in my home folder where I put things like this, okay? So I'm referencing bash. I've got a comment here that tells me what it's for. And of course, if you want to use this, you'll uncomment all these lines. There's the also control restore command. So that restores my settings to my sound card should something happen or something change it, like plugging in my headphones and removing my headphones. And then I also use a utility called Zenity. And Zenity is a utility that allows you to create graphical dialogues using the shell scripts. So I want it to let me know that the script has run correctly, that it has been executed. And so this last command right here just tells Zenity to launch an info dialog with the text speaker fixed. Okay, that's all that does. But it's a handy little script to have. You can make a desktop launcher for it, put it on your desktop. I put mine on my my panel up at the top of the screen, and we'll look at that in just a second. All right, so you can install the Zenity utility by sudo apt-get install Zenity. That's the package for Ubuntu or Mint. I would assume it's probably the same package name on any Linux distribution. It's been around for a very long time. Of course, you're going to enter that command without the quotes. All right, so this doesn't provide a complete solution, but it works, and it's easy peasy, guys. It's easy peasy. All I have to do is click that little icon anytime my sound card's not working, and it restores it. That's assuming that you've done what I told you need to do with your Windows installation. If, like me, you're booting Windows and Linux on the same system. Okay. All right, so let's go back over to our little utility here. All right, go back in. So what I want to show you is I've got this little, if you look at this little icon up here of a speaker, okay, so this is just a launcher, and we'll take a look at it. It's just a launcher that I created called SpeakerFix that runs that script that I just told you about. So all I have to do, if I need to restore my settings on my sound card, all I have to do is click this little icon up here, and it runs that script, and then Zenity throws up a little dialog that shows that it's executed. Okay, so if I go in my headphones and I put the sound all the way down, right? I'll put the sound all the way down and I mute it. So now I've got the headphones muted. I'm going to show you that this is a problem with the headphones on the sound card. Okay, so I'm going to try and play this again, right? The Sonar OGG file. Ready? Nothing. You didn't hear a thing. Okay, so if I go up and I click my little icon here that launches my script, did you see it? The headphone unmute and the sound went back to the top, and here's the little dialogue that I was telling you about. It says information, dialogue, speaker fix. So it's kind of just a visual feedback to let me know that the script ran as it should have. Okay, and if you look at your mixer, you can see that it's actually working just fine. So if I go ahead and I bring my master volume down and I mute that, and I try to play the sonar file again, I don't get anything. Alright, so if I run my little utility again, click my little icon here, you saw that it unmuted it and it put the volume back up at 70% where it was. Now if I play the sound file again, there it goes. So everything is working as it should. Anyway, that's a wrap on this episode, and I'll see you next time in the Tinkerz Lab.